Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Critical Commentary. I'm Taylor, and today we are going to be doing a review to Season 2 of Netflix's The Witcher. I don't know why I said it that way. The Witcher. The Witcher? Oh, God. Before I get into my review, I just wanted to do a shameless self-promotion. I recently looked at my subscriber list, and we're about to hit, I believe in January, a year of it just being me on the screen, and I am about 28 subscribers away from hitting 200. To be honest with you, all I want for Christmas is to maybe reach 200. And I would just love if you guys could share my videos, or if you don't want to use this one, you could use a different one. I have been really enjoying doing this year. It's been a lot. I'm not going to lie. I really do have to keep myself in check and make sure that I'm going to be disciplined about doing videos, as well as be in school and work. But seeing your guys' comments has been amazing, and interacting with people on social media, especially Twitter, has just kind of made it worth it. So I'm going to end it really quick here, but I did want to say that I am super thankful for everyone who has been following my YouTube journey so far. And if you could pass this on so that I could reach 200 subscribers by 2022, that would be great. And thank you in advance. So, wow. Season 2 was amazing. This is coming from someone who has never read a book from The Witcher lore or even played a video game. This was amazing. This show had me on not just the edge of my seat, but afraid to finish the season, because I felt like once I finished the season, I would literally have nothing else keeping me alive or functional. Not only was I in the middle of watching it when it came out, but I went ahead and I turned around and started the season over again with friends, because I knew, well, two things. I knew, one, they loved The Witcher because they played the games, read the books, but also because I don't know much about the lore and I wanted them to educate me. So it was this has been the most in-depth I've gotten into a series that I honestly know nothing about in so long, and I am just so excited to talk about it with you guys. I will let you know that just based off of kind of how available Netflix is, I'm going to just assume everyone has seen it, so I will be getting into spoilers. This is your warning right now. So when I was thinking about how I wanted to organize this video, I just kind of had a lot of disorganized thoughts about how much I liked this season. I will say this. I felt like the first episode was extremely indicative of how the rest of the season was going to progress, in the sense of just rhetorical devices used and elements that were emphasized in this episode. And because it's the one I've also seen the most, because again, I've been kind of going back and rewatching it, I kept noticing each time around that there was a lot more than how I really was picturing the season was going to go. So the whole point of season 2 is that Siri starts learning to become a witcher. And at the same time, she's starting to learn where her chaos is really originating from, which is, spoiler alert, elder blood. And everybody else in the world that's playing into the politics of this world, they are also becoming wise to Ciri's ability. They're also becoming aware that Ciri's alive, that she's not dead from season 1. And there's a lot of multiple people's agendas that are starting to become I wouldn't want to say they're categorized. One of my friends made a comment that a lot of the Witcher lore doesn't judge. It's very objective. And so you're presented with a lot of information without really being told, is this a good thing or is this a bad thing? And I noticed that that was something I kept kind of forcing when I was watching the episode, especially when I was by myself. I kept being like, well, do I trust this part? Because, you know, in my mind, based off of what I know, this seems like a bad idea. But there were a lot of things that kind of happened that were kind of in the middle. And I felt like, okay, how am I really going to be able to conceptualize this world if I don't know what the rules are? And I don't want to say that there weren't rules at all to The Witcher's world, but I did like how neutral the team stayed. And one thing I'll bring up too is the fact that one is that they kept with some of the video game elements. Again, when I was watching this with friends, they were like, like during the first two episodes, and the whole time I was going, what? What is it? What is it? And I realized it was because they were gasping at how well they adapted parts of the video game to very much mimic exactly how it looked in the video game, but in the show. And so that was really cool. Because, again, when I'm seeing stuff, I'm just assuming that's, you know, the team that created the series' imagination. I had no idea that things like the training posts at the kind of Witcher homestead is kind of copied and pasted out of the game, and how the first episode is technically a short story. So, which is also my second point, was just like how well they were able to stay faithful to the original source material. And I thought that was really cool because, again, I don't really have access to a video game console right now. And I also just really haven't been able to read the series because when I tried to go to the library, the books were taken out, and I'm also in the middle of reading a series that I have failed to finish now. So like I need a way to consume the content in the quickest way possible. And while I know that that's kind of a cop out, I feel like with my friends' seal of approval, that Witcher Season 2 definitely did it in a way that was still respectful to the source material and also willing to step outside the box and create new stories, but that still feel authentic to what's already been established. I will make a comment that, and again, this is all me just freshing it, my opinions. I thought that the female characters in Season 2 were phenomenal. Like, we already met Triss, Yennefer, and Ciri, and Fringilla, but I didn't really like Fringilla in Season 1. I kind of found her to be a bit of a pushover, and it wasn't until Season 2 that I started to understand and empathize with her better, and I was able to understand a little bit more about what her goals are and like what it is she wants to achieve. And I felt like we got a good even with the male characters, we just got more character development, and it was done in a way that was concise but also still pretty in depth. I felt like it was done in a way where I was able to understand everything perfectly. And kind of going into this, it's the same thing that I felt with Triss. Like, I was aware that there was a love triangle in the games, or in the books, I guess, as well, but specifically the games, is that there's a love triangle between Geralt, Yennefer, and Triss. And I totally understood her character and, like, why it is a bit of a tossed coin. When you look at Yennefer, you know, I kind of described this when I was talking to my friends. I was like, I feel like Yennefer is the love of your life that you kind of meet kind of from trauma bonding. There's a little bit of that there with both of them feeling like outsiders and just kind of like, I don't really know who to trust, who to turn to. I've been doing all of this by myself. And I felt like that, like, darkness is what connected Geralt and Yennefer. And I totally get it. It's sexy. It's, you know, it's like YA literature come to life. But one of the things that I also noted about Triss was I was like, I feel as if Triss serves as that surrogate mother for Ciri, because, you know, Geralt is a surrogate father to Ciri. And so I got this feeling from watching the series like Triss was that healthiness, that ideal, like we could live a normal life, have a white picket fence kind of life. And I thought that was really amazing, or interesting at least, to see these two women who are both, you know, they're obviously best friends, and they're also in love with the same man. That's obviously going to be somewhat complicated, and it's going to have a lot of feelings. And I always was just curious as to, well, why doesn't he just end up with Yennefer? Because I knew more about her than I knew about Triss, and so I never really understood the deviation until I saw season 2, and now I start to kind of understand how some people might be more Triss fans, because she does have some things to offer. This is not some sort of like Team Edward, Team Jacob, where both people are pretty negative. And again, I don't know all the lore, so I could be wrong. So if I am, tell me. But I felt like Triss offered up an ideal lifestyle, whereas Yennefer found the benefits of their reality. And I can understand how that might be really difficult when you're trying to figure out a lifelong soulmate. I also really enjoyed the introduction of Francesca, the elven queen, elven leader. I know that she's a part of that group of elves that are kind of considered the terrorists, because they are not as willing to cohabitate with the humans. But I was kind of confused as to what Francesca's role was outside of the Deathless Mother storyline. But once we started getting into it, and like just how her story at least ended in the series was just like, oh my gosh, it was so like heavy and just so deep and dark, and like I felt for her. I literally cried after her child is just murdered in its crib. And like, especially because I believe she said in one of the episodes that like she'd been pregnant before, but she always lost it to a stillbirth. And so this is the first like viable child, and it's assassinated under her watch. And just there was just so much complexity within the female characters that I really, really enjoyed. And I know that like, I guess it doesn't really matter that I'm lauding female characters, because the male characters were just as complicated. But I do feel like, especially in fantasy, it is kind of hard to see more complicated female characters, because a lot of times they're fitting some sort of specific archetype, because it is fantasy, that has them somewhat fixed. And I liked that, because this world is so neutral and it is so grayed out, it doesn't make judgment, that we would see these like realistic women. A lot of the stuff that they were going through, even if I personally had never gone through it, I was able to put myself in their shoes and really empathize with them. And I found that to be pretty much what kept me going. It's pretty much what kept me binging the series, because I just felt like I needed more. I wanted more. I just kept craving more of their stories. I know I've brought this up before, that I'm a huge fan of Merlin, which came out on Sci-Fi in like, oh God, the early aughts. And the thing that I love about Merlin is because Merlin is kind of a campy, ridiculous fantasy show. The CGI is not very good. The makeup's not great. The storylines are kind of all over the place. But I still really enjoyed that show. And I don't want to assume it was intentional, because, I mean, it would be great if it was, but I'm also just not sure what The Witcher's budget was. But I did find there to be a bit of camp there that I really enjoyed. Starting from just Geralt's sass, like his overall sarcasm was just insane. I found it so funny. I was laughing out loud all the time just because like he's just like a grumpy grandpa, but like with the body of a nerd Chad. The contacts were kind of weird, and I feel like even though that they were weird in season 1, they got kind of weirder, I think, because of just how common people were wearing them in season 2, that it got a little campy. Some of the, there's a part in the season finale where Jaskier is trying to pass on this stone in the middle of this, like, really massive fight, and it's just like, oh, you're busy. And just like little things like that. Like I actually find camp in fantasy to be really welcoming. I like the fact that it is somewhat escapist, but in a way that is helmed in some sort of moral message or some sort of like story that, you know, we're kind of supposed to take in, digest. But I just, yeah, because fantasy does require having to just like be open to stuff and be willing to be like, okay, yeah, I'm just gonna believe that this is happening right now, that there is humor there. I don't think humor is used enough in fantasy and sci-fi, and I think that we benefit from it when it's there, because this was super enjoyable because the humor was just like really kind of making fun of itself, somewhat self-aware, but also like really essential to the characters that were the ones, you know, being the comedic relief. I'm trying to think of like any negatives or any critiques that I would have, and to be honest with you, I don't really have any right now. That doesn't mean that, you know, by the time I've seen it for the 5th time, I guess, that I won't have something more unique to say. But I will say that the aging of Siri was a little bit weird. I was made aware that Siri, during the timeline of everything, is technically like in her adolescence, you know, that like pre-pubescent kind of time of your life. So seeing a 20-year-old woman pretend to be a teenager, at least, that was a little bit weird. That was something that took me a minute to get used to. But to be honest with you, this is a nitpick because I feel like by the middle of the first episode, I was already like pretty down with whatever was going on and able to just kind of go, okay, whatever, it's fine, just take me on the story, I'm enjoying this so far. So I stated earlier that episode 1 was my favorite of the season, and to kind of, I guess, round this out and take it full circle, I'll explain why. I felt like the episode, I think I've already said it before, was indicative of the entire season because of the elements that were brought up and the themes that were brought up, particularly the thoughts about a monster and what defines a monster. When Siri meets the Bruxia that's living in Geralt's friend's home in episode 1, they have a conversation about what does it mean to really be a monster? What categorizes you as a monster? And I thought it was really interesting that, you know, as that story progresses, we start to see that Vervina just was a Bruxia, a vampire. Like, she needs blood to survive. How do we sit here and judge her for doing something that's within her nature when we ourselves have the proclivity of being completely horrible to each other? And she even comments that humans are horrible to everyone, which, I mean, isn't a lie. I felt like this was really important to the whole theme of the show because, you know, with Siri trying to come into her own, and she's starting to develop her powers and understand what chaos is in relation to her and her elder blood, we see that she's afraid that her power might be beyond her control. And that's something that other characters even make a comment on. She's afraid that she can't control her powers because she's been introduced to people who just don't help her, and they end up being afraid of her at the end. And like, that just really stuck out to me once I got to the end, because again, like I was saying, I've just been rewatching. I kept seeing the first episode and I kept being like, there's something important here. I don't know what it is, but I feel like I need to take it in and really like sit with it for a bit. And then once I got to the season finale, I understood its purpose. I understood why they started with this short story. The world is not perfect, and people are not perfect. And even in a magical and fantastical realm, there is still this dichotomy of people who want to do good by others and those who want to do good by themselves. And where is the line? Where do we judge? Where do we point fingers? Because at the end of the day, that complicatedness is what makes reality reality. It's what makes the world, I don't want to say go round, but living in a idyllic fantasy isn't as interesting or as compelling as I think people really consider it to be. And so when you think about, well, who's a monster, that really focuses on the audience point of view. We have to take in our own biases. We have to take in lessons that we learned growing up. So things that to you may not be considered inappropriate or diabolical might be crossing the line like 10 yards ago to someone else. And I just really loved that. I thought that part of the story was so amazing. I like complicated people. I like having a somewhat pragmatic perspective on things, because I do personally believe that we're just a lot more complicated than we think, and that, you know, good and evil is not as black and white as we think. And I felt like this season not only gave me just good character development, but also a really good plot line that had some sort of like certainty, or not certainty, but like deadline, but in a way that was still a slow burn. We had a concise storyline. It ended, but it also opened up a door that would allow us to have even more seasons going forward. And I just really, 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 really enjoyed watching it. Oh my God. Oh gosh. That's how you know how excited I am. I pulled my own earbud out. But I am excited. I really enjoyed this show. I felt like it really spoke to me in that I just really needed something that was going to entertain me and give me something to like just decompress with. Like, I'm just coming from finals. I wanted something that was going to be entertaining, but also, you know, like riding the line of like smut and intellectual. And I felt like this really gave me that. I don't really have much else to say. I would love to know what you guys think. So please let me know down in the comments what you thought about this. Did you love The Witcher? Were there things that, you know, maybe because I am a newbie to the lore, I didn't pick out or consider that were really important? Share them. Please, let's start a dialogue about it. I need to talk about the show with someone who is a little bit more knowledgeable than myself. So I am so open to all of the theories and comments down below. Ooh, sorry. All the comments down below. I'm getting a little excited. Also, please make sure to follow me on Twitter and Instagram at CriticalCom with 2M's TV. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a video here on Critical Commentary. Bye!